A roof collapsed. 16 people died. Students didn't wait, they walked. For days they walked. For miles and miles to say enough. This isn't just protest, it's a wake-up call. On the morning of November 1st, 2024, commuters filed into Novi Sad's newly renovated train station, without a second thought. At 8:17 a.m., the roof, hastily rebuilt by politically appointed contractors, of course, like everything and anything that goes on in this country of Serbia, gave way. In seconds, the steel beams crashed down. 16 men, women, and children among them were buried beneath the rubble. Families woke to emergency calls. Strangers rushed to help. By noon, hospital corridors overflowed and the country went into shock. This was no accident. It was a symptom of a system that has long put party loyalty above public safety. This has been going on for years in Serbia. Within hours, social media exploded. Photos of candles and flowers at the station entrance spread. Videos showed tearful relatives begging for news. Citizens gathered, demanding answers. Construction Minister Goran Vesic took the fall. He offered his resignation publicly at 3 p.m. Yet survivors and families knew his departure was a token gesture. They saw real culprits, a web of cronies who cut corners, ignored regulations, and answered only to the ruling party's hierarchy. On evening news, protesters clashed with riot police blocking access to the station. The message was clear: resignation isn't accountability. Nobody cares about the minister anyway, or the prime minister. These are all puppets, or the construction company, or whoever hired the construction company, or whoever was the company who was overseeing the construction. And there were many involved. Nobody cares about any of them. This basically comes down to just one man who created his own autocracy here, his own system, where everybody has to listen to him, and that is the current president of this country, Vučić. In Belgrade's main square, a small group of university students decided to march to Novi Sad, some 70 kilometers away. They carried backpacks, banners reading "Safety over cronyism," especially the slogan "Ruke su vam krvave" could be heard, and "Dosta" and others, and portable speakers, megaphones. As they left on November 7, locals offered tea on doorsteps, food and drinks. When they arrived 3 days later, hundreds joined. Undeterred by cold and fatigue, the students announced their next leg to Kragujevac, 120 kilometers further. So something was stirring up in the country. The students finally seeing everybody saw, or everybody has seen what has been going on, but the students finally had enough, and they just went on to organize these marches at first, so everybody could feel the energy forming for the first time, I think, even though we had protests before, for the first time forming into something that will have shape, that will take shape, which will, be powerful enough to echo throughout the whole country first, and then later Europe and the world. On Valentine's Day, a caravan of 200 set off, each footstep echoing a demand for a government that values life over power. At every town, citizens lined the streets, bringing blankets, homemade pastries, and applause, and good energy and support. On March 1st, they reached Niš, my hometown, as you know. Finally, on March 15, the group returned triumphant to Belgrade's Republic Square, now a mass of hundreds of thousands voices chanting for justice. These weren't just marches, they became traveling festivals of solidarity. In Kragujevac, pensioners ladled steaming bean soup from cauldrons. Young mothers wrapped thermoses of tea in scarves. In every village, bakers donated loaves stamped Za studente. In Niš, it was magical that day. There were people literally everywhere. There was music, food stands, drink stands, people playing basketball in the middle of the streets. People just resting in parks like all around the city, playing the guitar, walking around, chanting, Ruke su vam krvave. Homes opened for overnight stays. There were hundreds of thousands of people coming from different cities just to gather here, just to support the protest here in Niš. The same happened before in Kragujevac, and the same thing happened a few weeks later in Belgrade, of course. But for my hometown that day, to see so many people from all around this beautiful country gathering here, many of them probably coming to Niš for the first time, creating that magical atmosphere, that bolting of hope, that struck at least this city, at least that day. It was magical. It was something, for a moment, for a longer than a moment, I kind of felt alone, because you live in your own micro universe, and everywhere you see there are SNS supporters, people who support this cancerous system. You see people around you, you see your neighbors, you see your co-workers, and you really feel like you're alone. At one point you start feeling like you're alone. So to see my whole city light up with people who actually have common sense, who are not backwards, people who think about the future of their children and themselves, people who are just normal, and people who value meritocracy over anything in a system or in a country they want to live in. It really was magical. Makeshift clinics tended blisters and sore feet. The grassroots generosity turned the protest into a nationwide affirmation. Serbians still believe in helping one another when institutions fail. But as the movement swelled, the ruling party struck back. On January 28 in Novi Sad, plainclothes men linked to SNS, basically they stormed out of the SNS office, emerged from side streets wielding baseball bats. Students, of course unprotected and unprepared for a vicious attack like that, and surprise attack, fell to the pavement as the assailants struck at their heads and backs. One 19-year-old girl later faced multiple fractures in her jaw and a shattered wrist. As I'm filming this video in July, there's just been news announced that the president, Aleksandar Vučić, has pardoned these 4 SNS activists. He has pardoned them. They fractured a 19-year-old girl's jaw. They fractured the girl's jaw, attacked a 19-year-old girl, attacked a student that was just walking around. and fractured her jaw with baseball bats, and the president of this country has pardoned them. This is the country we're living in. Hospital reports said she might never fully regain her hearing in one ear. 2 weeks later, in Belgrade, vehicles were ordered to drive into the ranks of sitting protesters. This has been going on the whole time. Bystander videos show tires screeching, men and women thrown aside like rag dolls. Dozens were hospitalized with broken bones and head wounds. The Interior Ministry initially claimed students charged the vehicles. Yeah, that was hilarious. Then retracted under pressure when citizen shot videos proved otherwise. Video footage shows tearful teenagers stumbling into alleyways, eyes streaming. Even when footage surfaced on independent news outlets, state TV edited out the violence entirely, dubbing over the screams with patriotic anthems. This calculated brutality only galvanized more citizens to join the cause. To understand how protests met such repression, we must look back. In 2008, a major split saw Aleksandar Vučić and Tomislav Nikolić break from Vojislav Šešelj's Radical Party, once known for wartime extremism and calls for ethnic cleansing. By 2012, Vučić's newly formed SNS won power on promises of reform. But reform gave way to consolidation. Every ministerial role, state university dean, hospital director, and school inspector, and all the other public jobs and positions, from the managerial positions to the lowest positions, basically was filled by party loyalists. Some people think we deal with corruption here. We don't deal with corruption. Mere corruption exists in every country. We are all aware of that. But in this country, there's a cancerous system in place. You literally, a person can work, people work here their whole lives. They have never seen what a normal job interview looks like. They've never actually been on a real job interview where somebody would actually choose between the candidates. Everything, every job position, every job interview is rigged. There is no chance. It's just rigged. There is no chance you can get the job even though you're the best possible candidate if you're not the member of the political party. It literally is like that. Like I've heard that even for cleaning ladies in public, all the public companies, I'm talking about also schools, hospitals, I'm talking about all the public companies out there, not to mention the managerial positions. I mean, there are, literally some of them are even opened for some people because some people need to be directors or managers or bosses, So they even make up job positions just so they can hire them or put them in place. But all the actual job positions, they need to be filled by people who know the job, people who are experienced at the job they're supposed to work. Instead of that, all of these people are just chosen and hired based on the political party that they're in. Teachers, doctors, engineers, talent counted for less than loyalty. Over 12 years, SNS turned Serbia into a one-party state in all but name. Any dissent was branded foreign-backed or subversive or a traitor or a spy or whatever. The collapse was not an isolated tragedy. It was the inevitable outcome of systematic cronyism. A 2021 audit of SNS-run municipalities warned of structural deficiencies in building codes, yet the warnings were buried. Contracts for the station rebuild went to firms whose CEOs held party cards, not engineering degrees. Whistleblowers who raised alarms were silenced or reassigned. Not to mention that the president of this country organized the press conference and acted out like, we renovated everything but the roof. Like, the roof was the only thing we didn't renovate. How did we miss that? And then later on, by multiple sources, of course, it was proved to be a lie. I mean, he goes out and lies every day, but that one was particularly bizarre for me, because he can just come out and say anything without any consequences. And he just went out and said that, and then later, of course, people showed proof. There's a lot of paperwork behind all of this, behind the construction, many companies that are involved in it. And of course, they did renovate it, and they invested millions of dollars into this train station. I think it was more expensive than the main metro station in Paris and other major European cities. On November 2nd, an interim report revealed welds beneath the station supports were inadequate and steel beams undersized. But by then, the repairs had already failed catastrophically. 16 families will never know why a government that preached progress so often chose profit over people. This is the cost of politicized infrastructure. This is the cost of politicized country. This is the cost of the politicized system. Cancerous politicized system. Half a year later, the momentum hasn't waned. In Belgrade, weekly protests draw at least 20,000 strong, students shoulder to shoulder with teachers, other citizens as well. Periodically also, we have huge protests with hundreds of thousands of people still. Actually, now we are 8 months in, 8 months since November 1st. In Novi Sad, activists hold nightly vigils at the station ruins, ensuring no one forgets. The self-organized spirit that carried those first marches lives on in study groups, neighborhood assemblies, and pop-up legal aid booths for arrested protesters. As we're moving into July now, the protests have become violent. Actually, the police have become violent. They've started taking students, protesters into custody, beating them on the street, chasing them around the street, trying to push them away. The protesters keep trying to block major streets and crossroads and roundabouts, especially in the three major cities, Beograd, Novi Sad and Niš. Also other cities as well, don't get me wrong, the other cities as well. But these days, the violence is present, and this is something new that we've started experiencing the last maybe 7 days as we enter July. And there are lawyers. Yesterday, there were 100 lawyers. They gathered in front of, I think, Pravni Faculty of Law. Of course, providing or offering free help to all the students that need it, giving them power of attorney or asking for power of attorney from students so they can act on their behalf. And they can request to see them once they get arrested, because police have been arresting students every day and every night, and without any probable cause. Basically, they almost stormed into the Faculty of Law the other night, which is something that they're not supposed to do or shouldn't do, or it's not under their jurisdiction. Almost, they were at the door, literally hunting for students, and they've taken into custody, I think, 20, 30 students that night in front of the faculty, lined them up, put them in cuffs, beat them to the ground, pushed them all into police vehicles and taken them downtown to the station without any reason. International observers have lauded Serbia's students as a beacon for Eastern Europe, proof that even in hardened political climates, citizens can forge solidarity. Here in Niš, last week, retirees joined a student sit-in outside City Hall, chanting "Enough." Meanwhile, your younger viewers are live streaming from back alley art shows mocking the ruling party's slogans. There is creativity in resistance and an understanding that change, once begun, cannot easily be stopped. The protests, as I've said before, don't look pretty now anymore, as we also have video footage of police officers in blocks, probably New Belgrade or somewhere, Zemun, running around between the streets and narrow passages, hunting down people, arresting them, beating them, and police brutality is something we have to face nowadays. This has been the story of a nation jolted awake by tragedy and of youth who refuse to be silenced. If you believe in the power of peaceful protest, share this video and use Serbia Protests hashtag to keep the conversation going. What inspires you to stand up for justice? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell for more culture and living stories where we explore the moments that shape our world.